Hi everyone, welcome back to Twins Talk Ars. We're here just after the Arsenal Southampton game, where Arsenal have just been knocked out of the FA Cup for the 2021 season. We're going to talk a little bit about how we thought that game went, Arsenal's kind of disappointing performance, but the return of some key players, and then also talk about Arsenal's transfer activity, the new signing which we've just made, and what we think we've got coming up in the next few games. So the Southampton game today, personally, I thought was disappointing. We had some fringe players like Pepe and Willian who had a chance to really make an impact in this game, I think, and proved why they should be in the first 11. And they were disappointing. They are big players on big money, which just can't seem to make an impact on any game which they play in. And I think it kind of demonstrates the lack of depth that Arsenal have in the team. If we're not playing our first team, we can't win games. We go immediately back to that Arsenal which was losing against Burnley and not able to win a game in the Premier League. So I think it's worrying, and I think that also kind of plays into what we'll talk about a bit later, which is Arsenal's transfer strategy. What do you think, Stas?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think what we saw today from Arsenal is there was a lot of players which, are normally sitting on the bench in Premier League games. And these are players which are, now getting their chance to show what they're about, show what they're made of, show their quality and why they should be in the side, in the Premier League games. And ultimately, unfortunately, there was a lot of poor performances. Again, another poor performance from Willian, another poor performance from Pepe overall. El Neni didn't really shine. Gabriel, I know he's just come back. He's had COVID. So, he's maybe not, 100% match fit, but it wasn't a great game from him overall. There wasn't a lot of positives to take from it from an Arsenal point of view. Eddie Nketiah didn't play that well overall. He had a few half chances, but, kind of only half chances. I don't think there were really enough players today which kind of staked their place for a team in the Premier League team when we play Southampton come midweek.
Yeah, I think it's disappointing because you've got Eddie Nketiah, who a lot of Arsenal fans doubt. They don't think he's good enough to make the step up to the first team. And he's currently being played in front of Balogun, who is running out of his contract. And many people think he's a great talent. And Eddie's just not taking the chances that Arteta is giving him. He's currently in front of Balogun, and yet he's not demonstrating why. And I know that at one point this season, he was our top goal scorer, but I think that's more reflective of how poor our goal scoring has been this season, as opposed to how great Eddie Nketiah is. There were a couple of chances today, which if he had put away, we would have won the game, but he didn't. And yeah, it just really exposes the lack of depth that Arsenal have. If you don't have Lacazette and Aubameyang playing up front, we're not going to score. And this is, a lot of people were criticising Arteta for not dropping Aubameyang earlier on in the season. Who are you going to drop Aubameyang for? Who?
Yeah, it's true. I think that's a big issue. We, still have a fairly large squad in the sense that, we've got rid of a fair few players already in the transfer window. But it shows that, we've got a fairly big squad, but we don't have the quality. We don't have the quality in depth. Yeah. So, when our first team doesn't play, we don't have the quality to make stuff happen. We don't have the quality to create good chances and then also to score the good chances. From an offensive point of view, I think you can definitely tell the difference between, Willian, Pepe, Eddie Nketiah up top. If you compare that to, more of our first choice lineup where we've got Aubameyang, Lacazette, Emil Smith-Rowe and Saka as an example, it's when these players are coming in, Pepe, Willian, etc., we have high expectations, high hopes for them. We want them to do well, of course. Yeah. They're Arsenal players. We want them to score and assist, but they're not delivering, unfortunately. And I think, that's a key problem. Ultimately, we've got a big squad, but our second team isn't quite up to the standard of where the Arsenal squad overall should be. We've got a good first 11, but a lot of our backup players aren't really good enough to play for Arsenal.
I wouldn't say they're not quite up to the standard. I'd say they're a million miles away from where they need to be. Like, these are not like youngsters which we're bringing in. This is Willian, like a Champions League winner. The guy that's won like everything.
Yeah.
He was in 200k Arsenal. We've got Pepe, who we signed for 70 million. And these guys are just not performing. These guys are not in our second string team. And, you saw Pepe today. He had a free kick. And you just saw it get blazed wildly over the crossbar. Sitting there like, of course. There's no consistency to the guy's play. Every once in a while, there'll be a little spark. And that's apparently worth 70 million pounds. No,
yeah,
consistent. And you're bringing on Saka to improve this team. And Saka's a 19-year-old from our academy, and Emil Smith-Rowe is a 19-year-old from our academy. It's just annoying that Arteta is giving these players these chances and they're not taking him up on it. And now we're kind of lumbered with the massive paycheck which we're giving Willian the next 3 years, because who's going to take him after his performances for us this year?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, also it's like, we're probably not going to get rid of him in the summer because we've just signed him. But yeah, I mean, then it becomes, by the time we do get rid of him, by the time his contract runs out, he's basically like 35, so he's going to retire at that stage. If he doesn't move to America or China or something. Yeah, I mean, we don't know necessarily what he brings behind the scenes in terms of leadership qualities. Kind of similar to what David Luiz brings, where a lot of the youngsters say they look up to him and he's a big influence behind the scenes in the training ground, etc.
Who cares I do agree. Though? For 200k a week, you should be banging in goals.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, you pay the big money for them to perform on the pitch. David Luiz, I know he has his moments, but to be fair, he also does have very good games in general. Whereas, Willian, Pepe, they are on big money, both of them. And, they haven't really shown what they're about this season. Pepe is slightly more disappointing, I would say, for the simple reason that he had his kind of adaptation season last season. So, you give him a bit of leeway last season, but you kind of wanted him to kick on this season and show what he's about. But he hasn't quite managed that, unfortunately. Willian is tough. With Willian, he, to an extent, does need a bit of an adaptation period. It's a different style of football to what Chelsea played. But of course, on the other hand, he's an older player, more experienced player. I think you would expect him, he's played in the Premier League. You would expect that adaptation period to be minimal in general. So it is, again, it's disappointing to see both of them ultimately failing to kick on.
For me, both of them are massively disappointing. I think what was massively disappointing today was this is the FA Cup. We've won this cup 4 out of the last 5 seasons. I think it is. I'm not including this season now. You think the players would want to fight to own that cup. They're the holders. We should be putting everything that we can to make sure that we are there in the final again, defending our trophy. And until the 70th minute, we weren't trying. From the 70th minute to the 90th minute, we were actually trying to score a goal. And I was just sitting there like, why weren't we doing this from the first whistle? And
of course.
It's because suddenly we brought on Saka and suddenly we brought on Lacazette, and they're actually pressing together. And then you're watching the game like before, and Pepe's not pressing, Willian's not pressing, and they're on so much money and they're not doing the basics, which other people are. It's just it's disappointing because the FA Cup was a source of so much joy for us last year, and we limply went out of it this year. This is the last I'll be negative, but it annoyed me how we went out today.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that in the sense that it wasn't a good performance overall. It was a strong Southampton side, fine, but it was a strong Arsenal side as well. When you look at the quality of the players, well, in theory, the quality of the players that we have on the pitch, definitely capable of winning the game. Especially these are players which, they want to play in Arsenal's first team. They're saying they're good enough to be in Arsenal's first team. We're giving them the chance, they're not showing it. So at the end of the day, we've got a lot of players which, talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk, basically. We've got a lot of players that say they're good enough. Maybe they show it in training, but they're not showing it when it really matters, which is on the pitch, whoever the opposition, Southampton in the FA Cup, Southampton in the Premier League come midweek, whoever they're playing, they've got to show they're good enough. And, ultimately, our second team, we've got a lot of disappointments.
Yeah, we don't have the strength and depth which other teams do, unfortunately. We've spoken about the game. It was disappointing. It was nothing like the previous games that we've seen. A few bright sparks, I would say, would be Gabriel came back. I know he got the own goal, but there was not really much he could have done about that. And apart from that,
it was a bit unfortunate.
Yeah. And apart from that, he had a good game. Partey came back. Partey, I'm not going to lie, there were points where he didn't quite look at it today. Not that he wasn't trying, but that sharpness wasn't there. But that's gonna come the more minutes that he gets with this team and the more he gets used to playing under Arteta's philosophy. So there's still some.
Yeah, I mean, he's still regaining match fitness, isn't he? After his injury. So there's still plenty more to come from him.
Yeah, exactly. There's some good things, which is the return of two pretty important players. It's probably about the only good things to draw from this game. I'd say one last disappointment was Cedric Suarez today. He was so impressive in our last game. And today, every ball that he put into the box was too long. Every single cross was not on target. And it really showed today. You had that difference between Tierney when he's playing and all of his balls are pinpoint. And then you've got Suarez, who every time he crossed, we lost the ball, went out of play. He was disappointing today. And if last game he was challenging Hector Bellerin, this game, he's showing why he's on the subs bench.
Yeah, very true. I think, going back to like the players that we have, ultimately in our B team, so to speak, this is ultimately why they show the reason why they're in our B team and not in our A team. For the simple reason that if they have a good game, it's one good game in isolation, rather than them consistently having good game after good game after good game. If Willian, scored like 5 goals in 5 games, you'd then be like, of course, he's showing why he deserves to be in the team. He's creating chances, scoring goals, X, Y, and Z. He's doing his bit for the team. But these players, they're complaining that they're not playing. But then you're looking at them like, Willian's gone 20 games now without a goal for Arsenal. You're looking at him, he's on big money, and this is 20 games in all competitions. So, never mind, fine, you don't do it in the Premier League where you're getting roughed up or whatever. He's not even doing it in the Europa League, in the FA Cup, in the Carling Cup. Like, he isn't doing it against anyone, which is the big issue. If you don't do it against Man City, against Liverpool, etc., people aren't going to necessarily slate you too much, if you're still performing regularly against the other teams. But William's problem is he isn't doing it against anyone. You look at the game today, we had the good chance with Eddie Nketiah, but apart from that, there wasn't really too much. None of the attacking players, in my mind at least, none of the attacking players showed why they deserved to play in our full strength in our first team. Like, none of them showed why they deserved to play against Southampton on Tuesday.
Yeah, there were a couple of points where Martinelli made good runs behind the back and we just couldn't find him. So I think, to be fair to the front line, we missed a number 10 today, but equally, it wasn't really good enough today. We weren't out the races today, and I don't blame the manager for this, because I think we spoke about this before. The only way these players are going to get back into form is by playing their way back into form, and we can't play the same 11 players for every single competition, because Arsenal's track history with injuries, they're just going to get injured. We've already had long-term injuries this season. So I don't blame Arteta for mixing it up and trying to get Pepe and Willian back into the fold a little bit, but it just didn't work today. And they're again showing why they shouldn't be at this club, really.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. What I would say is, moving on from the Arsenal Southampton game, I think a big thing it showed is kind of, how much we miss Emil Smith-Rowe. We didn't really have a creative attacking midfielder earlier on in the season. Ozil wasn't in the team. Emil Smith-Rowe was injured. So we kind of, went a large part of the first half of the season ultimately without an attacking mid. Now Emil Smith-Rowe's come into this team. He's had a few good performances recently. Now, obviously he got rested today, which, is okay, it's good. We're resting him for the Premier League game, fine. But it shows that now we kind of have the same problems that we used to have before Emil Smith-Rowe was fit, which is, when he doesn't play, we don't have that link between the midfield or the defence and the attack. And that's where, ultimately there's been rumours, we're going to sign a few attacking midfield players to kind of address that scenario. I know there's talk of the Real Madrid youngster potentially coming for 6 months.
Odegaard, yeah.
Exactly. And, I think, if he comes, if he's, fit, like he's not injured, if he can bring something similar to Emil Smith Rowe, if it's unique, he brings his own thing, that's fair enough. But if it's similar to what Emil Smith Rowe can bring, I think, we couldn't ask for more. I think, my opinion of watching the game today is we definitely missed a player like Emil Smith Rowe in the starting 11. So, if we can get another Emil Smith Rowe, so to speak, it's only a positive thing.
Yeah, I think Odegaard would be a great signing for Arsenal. I think last year he was out on loan and he played, I think, 36 to 39 times for his loan team, and he racketed up like 11 assists and over 10 goals as well. So he's a quality player which we'd be signing. I definitely think he's a player which we need to back up Emil Smith Rowe at the moment, because if Emil was out, our team just doesn't play really. So yeah, that's actually looking promising. We're hearing that's looking like Arsenal are really intent on making it happen, and there's some interest from the player as well. He might want to go back to the whole club, but hopefully he'll in red and white.
I mean, we've got a few agents helping us out. Agent Ceballos helping us out from Real Madrid.
Yeah.
We've also got agent Monreal from where he was at on loan last season. So we got a few. Yeah, Monreal plays for them.
Yeah.
So we got a few influences potentially working in our favor to help the deal get over the line. I mean, ultimately, this is a young kid. He needs first team football. I'm not saying he'll play every game for Arsenal necessarily, but if he comes, shows what he's about, it can be promising signs for a promising future for him, whether that be at Arsenal or at another club. If he can deliver at Arsenal for then for the second part of the season, it will open a lot of avenues for him, whether it be a move away from Real Madrid to a top team, or whether it will be for him to succeed at Real Madrid. But what you want to see is that he comes to Arsenal and has that hunger, that determination to succeed.
Yeah, that's exactly what's missing from Pepe and Willian, and that's what I want to see with our new recruits. And talking about our new recruits, we signed a Matt Ryan from Brighton this week. I think he is a massively important signing for Arsenal. We didn't get to see him today, even though he was signed early enough to be registered to play today. But obviously, he needs to get used to the team. He needs to have a bit more settling in time. But if Bern Leno would get injured, we would be absolutely lost with Rudiger in goal. I think we would be almost a relegation threat with every shot that's on target possibly creeping in. So it's good that we went out to get an experienced Premier League goalkeeper who's also an Arsenal fan as well. Going to be a great number 2 who could hopefully compete and push Leno.
Yeah, of course. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is, on one hand, this is a goalie that lost his place in goal for Brighton. He was number 1. He's not he wasn't anymore before the transfer to Arsenal. But, over the last few seasons that Brighton have been in the Premier League, this is, he's been a good goalie for them. He's got over 100 Premier League appearances. He has shown what he's about in previous seasons for Brighton. He has been a great goalie, a consistent goalie for Brighton. It is a step up for him to come from Brighton to Arsenal. But I do agree, we were in a tough position where we have a number 1 goalie. We've got a number, 4 goalie in Runnison.
Yeah.
We didn't really have, that bridge in between, so to speak, a number 2. So, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Matt Ryan is going to massively challenge Leno necessarily, but one, I think he has the potential to, whether he will or won't is another issue, but I think he does have the potential to, but also he simply acts as a bridge that if there is a worst case scenario and Leno gets injured, we have someone that has played in the Premier League before, has that experience, is a decent goalie, rather than relying on, you know, a youngster, unproven talent, etc.
Yeah, and it's always nice to see an Arsenal fan join the club and represent the club. So it's a dream for most Arsenal fans, to play for Arsenal. So I think a lot of people kind of lived through his first interview when they watched it.
Yeah.
We've kind of covered incomings. Let's talk a little bit about outgoings, because we've had a few players leave the club this week. What did you think about Mesut Ozil? It's not official yet. It was meant to be official today, but it hasn't been made official yet, as far as I've seen. But what do you think about Ozil on his way to Fenerbahce?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're going to do a longer video on Ozil once it's confirmed. But yeah, what I'll say about Ozil is it's a tough one, in his, first half of his Arsenal career, so to speak. He was a very good player. I think it's in terms of players to have, I think since he joined Arsenal, he's created more chances than any other player in the Premier League. I know it's, he's maybe been in the Premier League longer than certain players and whatnot, but even his, chances created per game, he's created more chances than, players like Hazard, like De Bruyne, etc. And this includes, the latter part of his career where he was playing, but he wasn't really doing too much, from an offensive or a defensive point of view. He wasn't the force that he was in the first part of his Arsenal career. So it shows just how good he was in the first part of his Arsenal career, that even when he tailored off in the latter part, once the big contract was signed, he still got such great statistics. So, he's still a great player. He was a great player. We won the FA Cup in his first 2 seasons at the club. So, he definitely, I think, helped Arsenal to be pushed back in the right direction and to attract, big talent such as like Sanchez in following years and, these types of players, Aubameyang, etc. But, given how things have ended, whether that be because of his China comments, whether that be because of football related matters, etc. Although it's a tough way for it to end, given his status, etc. Overall, he didn't contribute to the club in the way that he would have maybe liked, and also in the way that the Arsenal managers would have liked, whether that be Emery, Ljungberg or Arteta. So in the end, is probably the correct decision for Arsenal, and also for him. For him, maybe to have the spotlight on him was too much at Arsenal, especially in the latter part of his career. So he can go to Fenerbahce, enjoy his football, retire. For him, he's still going to be, enjoying his football, and it's going to be a good experience for him. So, I guess as long as he leaves on the right note, he has still had a good time at Arsenal overall. But it was probably time for him to move on.
Yeah,
given how things unfolded.
Yeah, my feelings with Ozil are kind of mixed. He was obviously a wonderful, gifted player, probably one of the best naturally talented players to play for Arsenal. And I think
even in the Premier League, I would say,
probably,
especially in his first half of his career at Arsenal.
Yeah, he had vision which I've not really seen another player have. And if you were going to put him in our Invincibles team, I think he'd be remembered as a legend at the club, because you kind of had the players around him to support him and protect him and let him sort of just be free to do what he wanted to do. I think we signed him and we moved into a bit of a direction when Arsenal was a bit of a fading force in the Premier League. And he's kind of a cream of the crop player. When Arsenal when you're in a team which is challenging for titles, you've got amazing players around you. He's a player that can come in and do amazing things. But as Arsenal started to regress and drop lower and lower down the table and have to be more worried about defensive work and countering other teams, when you need your players to put in that hard work rate, that's where Ozil started to kind of be a misfit. So I don't hate the club and I don't hate the player, really. I think, if we were challenging for honours and we had amazing players around him, he would be a wonderful player for the club. But it's just reflective of where we are right now and where he is right now, that we can't really fit him into our team, because if he's not going to work hard to track back to solve the defensive issues which we've had for ages, then we just can't have him, no matter how creative he is, if he's going to be a chink in the armor. So yeah, I think it's a shame. It was like absolutely magic when it worked, but it just got to a point that it didn't work for either party, and it's a shame for him as well. We don't want his talents to be wasted sitting on the bench, not even playing in the Premier League. He's too good for that. So
yeah.
it's
No, I agree. What I'd say on Ozil is, I'm sure we'll have a longer video on, like, exclusively on Ozil for when he does go, because he was, a big part of Arsenal. He was there for such a long time, so he deserves it to have a video on him for when he leaves. But yeah, I do agree. I think it's tough. I think the way things unfolded is probably best for all parties that he goes to Fenerbahce, and for him to enjoy his football again.
yeah,
Yeah. And then, talking about like other departures as well, Socrates' contract has been terminated. I think for him, again, it's one, we signed him during a difficult period, especially defensively, where we needed defensive reinforcements who would come in and do a job. I think especially in his first few seasons at Arsenal, he was very promising. He did the job. Arsenal knew that he was an older player, so he wouldn't have great sell-on value, if any. We knew that when we signed him. We didn't sign him as a 21-year-old kind of thing. But, to be fair to him, he came in, he did a job. He was always professional. The way you hear Arteta talking about him, Arteta raves about him, basically. He says, he's always how professional he is, and, how good an influence he is in the dressing room. So, these are the types of players that you want, in the dressing room, in the team, positive influences, role models, etc. But again, what I would say is, when we have a fully fit squad, we have like 8 or 9 centre backs.
yeah,
It's hard, especially when you look at, especially the way that like Rob Holding's playing, how well Gabriel's come in, etc. Mari's a left-footed centre back, which is massively in his favour. You've got Tierney who can play there, brings a bit more energy to that defence as well. If he
David
plays
Luiz
as a
as
third
well.
centre back. David Luiz, exactly. We've got a lot of possibilities. I mean, even Saliba could get into the team. So, we've got all of these energetic defenders, who are athletic and, good in the air, etc. It's hard to replace them with Sokratis when we want to play expansive football.
Yeah.
We need players that can track back as well and can recover quickly. And I think that's what maybe made it a bit hard for Sokratis to kind of fill that role, even though he's a good defender overall.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a standard squad player. Maybe at his peak he was better than that, but now he's kind of on the decline a little bit. He's aging a little bit. He's a good defender, but he's just come into Arsenal at a time where we've got a plethora of good defenders. For some reason, centre back is our strongest position right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, he came in at a time when Arsenal needed a centre back, so to speak.
Yeah.
He came in, did a job for a few years. You can't really fault him for that kind of thing. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say he was on Van Dijk's level or something like that, but he did a good job. He came in, he was solid in his performances overall. But yeah, now we are getting better quality defenders overall, and ultimately his time's up. But he did a very professional job while he was at the club.
Yeah, I agree. He did his bit. He served the club well. He's not a legend at the club, but not many people are since the Invincibles. So
yeah, exactly.
Wish him luck for the rest of his career.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, he deserves it. He was a top professional at the club.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's kind of it for our summary of the Arsenal Southampton game, which was not great. But I think Arsenal are doing well in the transfer window right now. We've got our business getting players out. There's a few more which still could leave, but now it's time to look at who we can bring in before the end of the transfer window. So let's see. Hopefully Odegaard will come, and maybe another signing as well.
Exactly. Fingers crossed that we can get the players that we need to, ultimately over the longer term bring us back to where we should be.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the content, if you liked the video, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm sure we will see you shortly after our next game against Southampton, where hopefully we've got a little bit of a better result to talk about. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Exactly. You know, if you guys want us to talk about anything in particular, then, you know, feel free to comment below and let us know, and we'll be sure to do the videos accordingly.
See you later, guys. Bye bye.